Cardano has a long history of secret announcements. In fact, this very YouTube channel actually started as a series of posts on Reddit, and the first post was about the secret African announcement that turned out to be the project with the Ethiopian Ministry of Education. Last year at the Cardano Summit 2021 in Wyoming, we also had the secret Dish Network Boost Mobile announcement that was pretty much on no one's bingo card, and the introduction of Coti as the group that would develop Djed. This weekend will be another weekend of secrets revealed. I actually know one of the bigger secrets that I'm not at liberty to share, but in the long run, the biggest secret of Cardano is one that we've all known for a very long time. It's that Cardano is the product of a crazy, super rich guy who really understood blockchains and crypto coming together with a bunch of like-minded people and deciding to finally build a blockchain correctly, no matter the cost or time or orchestrated ridicule that would have to be suffered. This is the true secret of Cardano. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the IOG investment in the University of Edinburgh, ScotFest and the Cardano Summit, trouble brewing in Cardano NFT land, criminal charges probably in the future of our favorite supervillain, the horror show that is the FTX bankruptcy, and Binance suspending Solana stablecoins. If you saw this image and said to yourself, wait a second, this is the thumbnail from Cardano Rumor Rundown number 188 back in September of last year, in an episode called Cardano's Secret Partners that came out right before the Cardano Summit 2021. If you said that to yourself, you are correct. And that's because we were speculating about a bunch of rumors that were going to be revealed in that Cardano Summit. And we're once again confronting a weekend where a lot of secrets will get revealed. So I thought it was appropriate. Or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Well, here it is, guys. We are about to have a fun weekend broadcast live from Scotland and Switzerland. So starting today at 10 a.m. GMT, there you go, 10 a.m. GMT, starting today as you listen to this video, ScotFest will start. And this is going to go down from Edinburgh, and I believe there's going to be some significant news shared at ScotFest if I'm understanding the hints correctly that we've all seen publicly. And then this will be followed by the Cardano Summit 2022. And it looks like some more secret announcements will be made at Cardano Summit 2022. I use the plural there. I don't actually know how many secrets will be shared at either of these two big events, but it's going to be a really fun weekend. So ScotFest is going to start at 10 a.m. GMT. Then I believe the Charles keynote is going to be at 2 p.m. GMT. So if I had to guess, I would guess that if IOG is going to share some big secret announcement, it's probably going to happen during the Charles keynote. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's when it's going to happen. So ScotFest will go on for 2 days, today and the next day. And then the Cardano Summit, it'll kind of lead right into the Cardano Summit. And then the Cardano Summit will take over. I believe the actual live events kind of start Saturday night, but I'm not sure if any big announcements or anything will be made Saturday night. Maybe that's just a little sort of pre-event going down live in Switzerland. But then I think we're going to start hearing things on Sunday. And then I believe the Cardano Summit also bleeds into Monday. So we're going to have like a whole long weekend of probably cool announcements coming out of IOG and the rest of the Cardano ecosystem in the Cardano Summit. Here's the website for the Cardano Summit 2022. You can see on the agenda that there's kind of a welcome evening starting on November 19th. And then November 20th, we've got Building Cardano and Building on Cardano on November 21st. Of course, most of us will be attending this event virtually. You can register for virtual attendance right here at this website, which is summit.cardano.org, register for virtual attendance. And of course, just like last year, they're going to have Cardano Summit NFTs. This year, kind of managed by Turf. We talked about that in last night's video. But I think this is going to be a good time. I hope all of you have the time this weekend to kind of jump on and see what's going on with ScotFest and also with the Cardano Summit. ScotFest should be pretty interesting given that this news has already broken in City AM. Charles says, yes, we gave University of Edinburgh $4.5 million to scale up our lab there. News broke a little early. I think the great thing about this IOG lab at the University of Edinburgh is that it's going to produce the Edinburgh Decentralization Index. You're probably aware, if you've been listening to Charles talk about this, the exciting part of this is that we don't really have a good definition of decentralization in crypto. And when you don't have a good definition, you can't really have a good metric. You can't really have a good means of measuring decentralization. So you can't really talk comparatively about decentralization in these different blockchains because nobody agrees on the definition of decentralization. So the University of Edinburgh is going to, this lab at the University of Edinburgh is going to come up with a good academic definition of decentralization and a metric by which they can measure different blockchains. And they're going to start with Bitcoin and then go right down the list and come up with an index measurement of decentralization for all the blockchains, including Cardano. They're going to do this. It's an academic setting. They're going to do this objectively. And we'll be able to say, hey, according to the standards for decentralization, according to this metric for decentralization laid out by these academics at the University of Edinburgh, they say that Cardano is more decentralized than these blockchains, less decentralized maybe than this blockchain, whatever it ends up being. IOG and Cardano have no control over it. This is going to be an independent academic investigation of decentralization in the mainstream blockchains in crypto. I think this is a long time coming. We could have used this a long time ago so that we can all be on the same page. I mean, people might disagree with how the University of Edinburgh, this lab, wants to measure decentralization, but at least the lab is going to lay out, hey, here's what we think decentralization is, and here's how we think the blockchain's fair on those metrics. So we can all at least be on the same page, even if we disagree with their definition. We can say, this is the University of Edinburgh Decentralization Index. So what is it? The EDI, the EDI score of this blockchain is this. Completely unrelated to ScotFest and the Cardano Summit, a little bit of a controversy did erupt today in Cardano NFTs. We're going to work through this backwards. So you might have seen this post today. This is from Alessandro of Space Buds, Nami fame, a million other things, a super heavy duty, awesome contributor to the Cardano ecosystem. He said this: we need to decentralize our dApp ecosystem on top of Cardano and get rid of single points of failure. Makes sense. I don't think anybody would debate that. We don't want single points of failure. Good actors can always turn into bad ones over time. Yep, also true. We should learn from past and recent events. Also true. We need diversity and more marketplaces, especially from individual big projects. Yeah, diversity of marketplaces is usually something that helps the invisible hand of the markets to allocate capital correctly. So what was he commenting on? Let's look down below here. He was commenting on this post from Patrick Tobler of NMaker fame. And Patrick is saying, using royalties as an excuse to move towards centralization and monopolizing NFT sales toward JPEG store. Why even use smart contracts at this point? Very disappointing decision. So this is pretty strong language. We don't see this kind of condemnation very often, I think, in Cardano generally. But when people use this kind of language, very reasonable, well-regarded people, there's usually some reason for it. And he was commenting on this post from JPEG Store. This post says this. I don't want to take it too much out of context. It was part of a thread that says JPEG Store is taking extra steps to protect creator royalties due to recent events taking place in different blockchains, and to further strengthen the security of our service contract plus royalties on Cardano. We made 2 changes. Purchases require a signature from JPEG. you can imagine that would raise some people's hackles. People would be on full alert when they all of a sudden see, hey, a very important marketplace in Cardano. You might be aware that JPEG Store does the vast majority of the volume in Cardano NFTs. As far as marketplaces go, they say purchases will now require a signature from JPEG Store. You're like, wow, that sounds less like decentralization and more like centralization, because what you envision, if you're a fan of decentralization, is that you go to sell something, a Cardano NFT in this case, and it should require your signature. And, the buyer is going to have to send some ADA or whatever asset. So they're going to have to send for the disposition of their ADA in exchange for the NFT you're selling. JPEG Store says, and you don't really envision the marketplace having to sign that. They say this prevents a 0% royalty marketplace from using JPEG Store listings, protecting our creators, and ensuring they get their royalties. NFTs can't be migrated to a non-royalty paying contract. Sellers will need to delist manually. And if you are a royalty conforming aggregator marketplace, please reach out to us for an API key and we will add you to a whitelist. If you're a regular user of JPEG, you will see no difference in the website or user experience. No need to do anything. We are working on a method to enforce royalties on chain. If this method or another in the future achieves its goal, the signature check will be removed, as it is only a temporary protection to creators. I kind of love, lately I've been talking about an immune response in Cardano against anything that is too centralized or in a different context requires participation in that sort of deposit and pray phenomenon. This isn't a part of that at all, but we're also seeing an immune response to this thing that sounds a lot like centralization. Purchases require a signature from JPEG. I don't know where the right balance lies between protecting creator royalties and avoiding centralization, but I'm actually glad to see that we have this immune response in Cardano to anything that looks or sounds like centralization. Of course, in those previous episodes, when I talked about the deposit and pray phenomenon, I was really referring to centralized finance entities in crypto, the kinds of entities, the embracing of which lead to headlines like this. Just in, Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office looking to prepare charges against SBF and FTX for alleged misuse of customer funds. So it sounds like things are about to go criminal for SBF and FTX. It'll be really interesting to see what those charges look like and who they include, because we've got quite a cast of characters, and it's, this could be expansive. This could be a number of people. It could just be SBF and FTX, but I think everybody involved in those entities, FTX, Alameda, and the seemingly endless number of related entities, I think all of them are probably losing a lot of sleep right now. Also, I really can't decide. Would it be harder or easier for SBF to hold eyes wide shut parties in prison or in his $40 million Bahamian penthouse? Also, having glanced at the bankruptcy docs that were filed today, I don't really feel bad for the person who's being put in the villain chair here. So here is the declaration of John J. Ray III in support of the Chapter 11 petitions and first day pleadings. He says, I am the chief executive officer of FTX, the FTX Trading Limited, and all of those entities that are involved. He is the person who is now running the show as part of this bankruptcy. So he's working with a bunch of people. He's working with a bunch of law firms, very high level law firms, Sullivan and Cromwell, and entities like Kroll. So he's got some significant tools at his fingertips. He says, I have over 40 years of legal and restructuring experience. I have been the chief restructuring officer or chief executive officer in several of the largest corporate failures in history. I've supervised situations involving allegations of criminal activity and malfeasance as in Enron. I have supervised situations involving novel financial structures as in Enron and Residential Capital, and cross-border asset recovery and maximization, Nortel, and overseas shipholding. Sounds like he's very well qualified to be running the show during this bankruptcy of FTX. Nearly every situation in which I have been involved has been characterized by defect of some sort in internal controls, regulatory compliance, human resources, and systems integrity. Here's where it's going to get real spicy. Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. From compromised systems integrity and faulty regulatory oversight abroad to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals, this situation is unprecedented. Do you understand? He's comparing them to Enron right now. He's saying, even in comparison to Enron, the most notorious failure of an entity, a corporate entity, maybe in the history of the Western world, he's saying this is unprecedented. He's never encountered something like this. This is a complete failure of corporate controls and a complete absence of trustworthy financial information. If you go through the rest of this filing, you're going to find some pretty crazy statements. Things like the entity giving SBF a $1 billion loan. Just give the head of the corporate entity a $1 billion loan. There's a lot of outrageous assertions in this bankruptcy filing. And I think this horror show only gets worse. The deeper they go into this bankruptcy, the more things are revealed. It's only going to get worse and worse. Here's some breaking news. I feel a duty to report this since it could be so consequential for the Cardano community and all of crypto Twitter, basically. I just got a message while I was editing this video. I got a message from someone that said, hey, you'll probably be interested. The entire infrastructure engineering team at Twitter walked out and Elon turned off their access badges. And the conclusion of the person sending this to me, and here's where it's going to get very speculative, of course, was that Twitter is going to collapse maybe tomorrow. So obviously, I hope that doesn't happen. So I immediately, fired up the old Googles and found this from Elon Musk. How do you make a small fortune in social media? Start out with a large one, implying that you just invest a large fortune in social media and it turns into a small fortune, which is kind of consistent. And then I look at the comments to that post from Elon and I see people saying things like this. Elon, there's a bunch of us in Silicon Valley who will come up tonight to help on the infrastructure side to keep the site up. If you need help, just ask. To which Elon said, thanks, implying there was some truth there. I also saw this question. Is it true 90% of your engineers left? He's citing his own post, of course. 90% decline in engineers seems likely to create at least some level of instability. I don't know exactly. This is developing right now, basically. So I don't know exactly what's going on here, but everything I'm seeing is kind of consistent with this this rumor that this just became the Twitter rumor rundown that a large portion of the infrastructure engineering team may have left Twitter. And the conclusion of the person who sent that to me was that the website will not be able to run without those personnel. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I hope this isn't the case because I feel like the Cardano community relies pretty heavily on Twitter. Unfortunately, the dominoes are still kind of falling from this whole FTX failure. And that'll probably happen for a while. It seems like every day we see news about some new entity, which is basically very subtly letting everybody know, hey, we're on the death spiral of collapse. Also because, and then they try to, explain why they were so interwoven with FTX and or Alameda or some other related entity. And this has probably led to you getting the same kind of phone calls I've been getting a lot of today. And these are friends and family who see these headlines and they automatically assume that this means what some of the mainstream media is implying, that all of crypto was a scam all along, that everything is going to zero. And probably you, as their crypto friend, have already seen the FTX debt collectors come to your door trying to repo all of your earthly possessions. While all of us in Cardano know that is definitely not what's happening, it kind of makes sense. People people outside of crypto only see the mainstream media headlines about crypto. So they might have seen a few headlines, about prices, things like that. And then all of a sudden this happens. And it's kind of looking like the biggest news from crypto the mainstream media has ever been able to report. So I think this is going to continue to get a lot of crazy headlines. Part of it is because of all the crazy things that were happening around FTX and Alameda and SBF and his crew of roommates down there. But I think we're definitely going to take a giant PR black eye in crypto in general. I'm just glad that Cardano wasn't tightly interwoven with all of that. But a lot of entities are being touched by this, including even Binance, who you wouldn't exactly call an ally of any type of FTX. But even Binance had to release this today. Deposits of USDC running on Solana and USDT running on Solana are suspended. So they would no longer let anyone even deposit those assets on their blockchain. That came out this morning. So you'll remember when we say USDC, we're talking about the USDC stablecoin, which is related to Circle, and you've seen a lot of on exchanges like Binance. And then you've got USDT, which is a different kind of stablecoin. I say different kind because there have always been questions around the assets backing USDT. As long as I can remember hearing about USDT, there have always been questions about the assets backing USDT. But then later on in the day, we saw this headline from Binance, this announcement, not a headline, I'll call it an announcement. Deposits of USDT token resumed, which didn't really surprise me. If somebody told me Binance is going to suspend deposits of USDC and USDT running on Solana, and they're going to resume deposits of one of those two, which of those two do you think it'll be? I would definitely guess USDT, because USDC is definitely more associated with Binance's big competitor, Coinbase. You may or may not remember that Coinbase was a founding member along with Circle in Center. Center is an independent member-based consortium. And here, right on the front page of their website, they tell us, we began by launching USDC, a fiat-backed stablecoin, and now the second largest stablecoin in the market. So, of course, Coinbase is partially a creator of USDC. So, no surprise that Binance is happy to suspend deposits of USDC and bring back USDT first. What I will say about stablecoins right now is that everything money-wise unhappily recedes grudgingly, openly scarred, tired, and before long, exhausted. But we can talk more about that next week. I hope you have a great weekend watching ScotFest and the Cardano Summit, and I will talk to you soon.